the Omegacast with your host, J.P. Whitman. Hello, everyone. Thank you for subscribing and listening to the debut episode of the Omegacast with me, your host, J.P. Whitman. You may wonder, who is J.P. Whitman? Well, I am a 29-year-old fan of wrestling. All forms of pro wrestling. Lucha Libre, indie style, women's wrestling, strong style. I watch it all. I am a student of the game. I trained as a pro wrestler for 3 months, but that was very grueling, and it made me appreciate the performers that much more. I come from Pittsburgh, PA, home of Shane Douglas, Bruno Sammartino, of course, Kurt Angle. I just wanted to say that I have been watching wrestling since I was a toddler. My aunt sat me in front of the television while she babysat me, and I watched Hogan and Andre and Jake the Snake. And as I grew up, my cousin, who was 7 years older than me, he would get the pay-per-views, and I remember sitting and watching with his older friends WrestleMania 12 and watching Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels in the Iron Man match, and something changed in me where I realized the beautiful art form that is pro wrestling. There's so many aspects of pro wrestling. There's sports entertainment. There is the art inside the ring. There's storytelling. There is characters. And we are going to talk about everything and anything pro wrestling related here. I am a fan. I want to draw fans in. I am here as a voice of the fans. And if you have anything that you would like to talk about, or you would like to call in, or anything like that, my Instagram is at JP Whitman. Now, as you are listening to this, you will see an awesome graphic on your YouTube that was provided by Drake Bergman. He is a fantastic graphic designer from the Pittsburgh area. His Twitter is at DrakeDB Designs, and his Instagram is DrakeDB Designs as well. Contact him if you ever need anything printed or made up as a graphic design, a t-shirt, a print, anything like that. But now that I got all of that out of the way, I would like to introduce my guest for today from our sister podcast, the Phenomenal Podcast. A good friend of mine, a smart and witty fellow named Tony Mussolino. Tony, are you there?
Yes, I am. And as the head of Goonland Productions, I just want to say that I am so happy that we are finally doing this. JP, I'm so glad to finally have you on the channel. I'm excited for the journey we are about to take with the Gooncast. As you said, I'm the host of the Phenomenal Podcast. You can follow that at Phenom Podcast on Twitter. You can follow me personally at amussolino71 on Twitter, facebook.com/Phenomenal Podcast for all of our updates. And like he said, giving a little intro with him, I've been a pro wrestling fan my whole life. My first childhood memory is literally Goldberg spearing somebody. So that should tell you everything you know about me. Been a fan my whole life. Always wanted to train, but never had the balls to train. So I have nothing but the utmost respect for you for doing that.
Man, it is tough.
I'm sure. Yeah, I can only imagine how hard it is. Just because people show on pro wrestling a lot, and they call it, it's fake, it's all that. But the bumps that they take are real, and that's some real shit right there. But though I don't have pro wrestling experience, do have a little bit of backyard experience. So
Oh, I hurt myself in backyard a couple of times.
Girl, my back is so messed up because of it.
I'll tell you, when you have to wake up at 6 a.m., drive an hour away, and just get body slammed on the crappiest ring for 3 hours, and then you have to go to a show, break down the ring, break down everything, set it up, break it down, transport it. Your body's dead, and it's just like, I love pro wrestling. It's a passion. It's my biggest passion. I mean, my fiance said to me the other day, Tim, oh, who's Tim? JP, your life is run by wrestling. And I said, no, baby, it's run by you. And she gave me this look, and I thought, well, she is smarter than me. So
no, no, and just the mistake that you made, I've made that 100 times. It's difficult, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. Now
Talking
she
in
actually,
the third person, pseudonyms, and
yeah, no, it's difficult. So that's why I kept my original name. But yeah, no, I'm the same way. No, wrestling definitely has a control over my life. I'm currently single, probably because wrestling and my obsession with it, which I'm 100% okay with. I honestly don't have a problem with that. If you can't love me because I like wrestling, then really I don't want to deal with you. So I can appreciate your girlfriend still sticking with you, even though, or even
my! In the beginning, it was like, oh, I like Ryback and Roman Reigns and Dolph Ziggler and Cesaro, and then a year later, it's like, another night of wrestling. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. That is so much content.
I remember when we were over when we did the Royal Rumble. I remember she walked into the house and the look on her face was like, "More wrestling."
Right. She went right upstairs. But yeah, as a matter of fact, the last time one of the last times I was on the Phenomenal podcast, it wasn't for the Royal Rumble, it was the episode beforehand.
Yep.
I think it was called Awesome Dong. If anyone is interested in hearing that episode, we talked a lot about 205 Live and where it could go and what it needs, because at that point it wasn't, we didn't know what was going to happen with the Enzo situation, with the title. The show seemed stale, and it seemed like the loss of a lot of their champions due to injuries or things outside of the realm of WWE, the universe of WWE, had just been really putting them under. And lo and behold, about a week after that conversation, maybe even less, they announced that there's going to be a general manager, and we discussed about who it could be, and they brought out Drake Maverick.
A lot of Drakes this episode so far.
Who was formerly known as Rockstar Spud and Impact and in the UK indie scene and such. And he has just brought such a fire as a GM. It's so great to see him just firing on all cylinders. All of these conversations he's had in the back with each competitor of this 205 Live tournament that will culminate at WrestleMania for the Cruiserweight title. All of his backstage segments with every competitor is so believable.
No doubt. Did you see my favorite so far? Did you see the one with him and Jack Gallagher?
Yeah, that was on this week, and he said wrestlers don't dress like that.
Yeah, so no, I love it.
Wear your best wrestling attire and boots. And I thought that was fantastic, coming from a well-dressed man such as Drake Maverick. I also, the week prior, when he read the Riot Act to Tony Nese and Drew Gulak, it was exactly what I wanted to hear. And it's 205 Live as a brand came out of the Cruiserweight Classic. And the Cruiserweight Classic was such a hit because it wasn't so much sports entertainment. It was, here are these guys, this is their backstory, and this is why they're fighting. This is why they're fighting for this opportunity on this stage to get this title, to be in the WWE. And I feel like
shit.
In the stories to each character.
You're good now.
the way that Drake has facilitated the changes to each character's story. Like, we had Kalisto versus Lindsay Dorado, and Kalisto went over, but they remained friends. But the whole time, both of them are saying to each other, "I need this. I need this." And you felt that it was a very competitive match.
No doubt.
And this week, possibly my favorite wrestling match of the week, maybe even the month, Drew Gulak. The Drew Gulak from CZW and Evolve came out and just had, I would say, in my personal opinion, maybe not a Meltzer opinion, a 5-star match with Tony Nese on a 205 Live show. And the passion and the emotion that he showed even after the win, where he grabbed the title, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, there's always like that stigmata of like, or stigma that stigmata is whenever your hands bleed, like Jesus. But
I was going to say, that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, the stigma of touching the title before you have it, you're not going to have it. It's a bad luck charm. I felt that it was great that he brought it into the ring and he said, "This is mine. No more sports entertainment, Gulak. This is Gulak from before. This is Gulak that got him to the Performance Center." You know,
no doubt.
You can see that and you can feel it.
Can I make a bold position or prediction?
Yeah,
I think Drew Gulak's going to have a great 2018. Honestly, I think he's going to really take off this year. I feel like he had big plans with all the Enzo stuff that was going on, like Zo Train, and he got derailed when that was a horrible pun, but he got derailed when all the Enzo stuff happened. I really think they're going to go with him on this one. He's a different guy in the 205 division. If you think about it, there's nobody else like him in that division.
I agree to an extent. There is one person in this tournament that we don't know what they're gonna bring, and then there's Roddy Strong, who kind of works similar. And
true.
Cedric Alexander in the first two matches of the tournament, we had Cedric over Grand Metalik, which was the right move because Cedric was set up many times to potentially have this title match, and things outside of his control kept derailing him.
No doubt.
Then you had TJP beat Tyler Bate in a pretty awesome match, and TJP's character is changing to where he's saying, I did this for the first time and won for the love of the fans, and the fans turned on me, so now I'm doing it for me, and that's great. I think it's great character development because TJP, as much as the McMahon strings were on 205 Live, TJP's character wasn't getting a lot of treatment. So it's nice to see some.
My question is, not to cut you off, but what was his character? The dab guy?
I don't know. I think it was just like, hey kids, listen to this cartoony music, and he has a lot of colors. I don't know.
Because I'm a huge TJP fan. Like I'm a big fan of him from like Evolved and of course like the Manic stuff back in TNA. Like I'm a big fan of him. He's a great wrestler.
He's a fantastic wrestler. It's just like, how do you get a character out of him and get him over? And they tried the face way, and then they put it in McMahon's hands, and it kind of fell to the wayside. And now Triple H is supposedly taking over 205 Live as well as his duties as NXT. And so far, everyone has been treated well. Everyone, all the stories being fleshed out are good. It was nice to see Roddy Strong wrestle Hideo Itami. I love that Roddy's in this tournament because it feels like he's kind of hit his peak in NXT.
Yeah, it was time.
But he hasn't hit his peak in the WWE yet. So it's nice to see him in this tournament. As much as I'm saying that they're doing well for everyone in this tournament, the only person who I think it has hurt is Hideo Itami.
I was going to ask you that.
I think Hideo Itami / Kenta has been cursed ever since he came to the WWE. He hasn't been able to really connect with with fans. He's been derailed with injuries or injuring others. He's just it's just not working, and I don't know why, because he's been in the States before and he's wrestled, and it's just like maybe there's something mentally going on there where he's really frustrated. I don't know, but
do you think he made the wrong decision coming to America?
no, I don't think that's ever a wrong decision, because if you want to get more exposure, if you want to be a superstar, you have to come here.
True.
And even if he fails, people are going to remember Hideo Itami. The pure wrestling fans are going to remember Kenta.
No, definitely. So, I think that's the big problem, honestly. Like, because we still remember that Kenta character. I just don't think he's been the same since coming to WWE. Like, he showed flashes of it at the beginning, but like you said it, the injury, that's really what killed him. That's what brought him down.
He got a couple injuries in NXT, and then everything that they've kind of put him in, it's just been it just hasn't had that spark.
Yeah.
Like, and it was cool that it was Strong and Itami, because that's a great match.
Oh, no, it was great. It was a phenomenal match.
But it sucks that it happened in the first round.
Yeah, like that honestly could have been a finals match.
Yeah, or a semifinal, quarterfinal.
Something like that, yeah. Now,
but like,
can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
If you want, who's your dark horse pick? Because I have a dark horse pick.
I mean, who do I
like? Who's like
dark?
Yeah, like
dark horse.
Yeah, like the person like you don't think's gonna win, but he doesn't have a chance to win, but you think's gonna win. I should say.
Mustafa Ali.
All right, that's a good one. I'm gonna go with Buddy Murphy.
Yeah, he's up there too.
Yeah, I think
I'm so excited to see Buddy Murphy again.
I was very upset after they split them apart, the Blake and Murphy, and had Alexa go up, because I was a big fan of them. Honestly, it seemed like it was rushed, and then the guys really had nothing to do with it. So I'm very happy to see him up on 205 Live.
I think when they were a tag team together, Bliss stood out more than they did. And it's nice to see that they haven't given up on Buddy Murphy, that Buddy Murphy didn't give up on himself. He's cut weight. He looks great. I mean, I am honestly excited to see what he does against Arya Daivari. I'm sure. I mean, I'm going to go on record and say he's definitely going to the next round over Arya Daivari.
You think so?
Yeah, Daivari's a great hand. He knows how to work the WWE style. He's someone who can leave 205 Live and go on to SmackDown tomorrow.
Yeah, I can see that.
But just for hype sake, Murphy has to win at least the first match he's in. We saw Mark Andrews, go over Akira Tozawa, which was very surprising to me, but a welcome surprise. I love Tozawa in the back strutting like McMahon and telling everyone once he wins the title again, he's going to fire people. That's just entertaining. Everything that Akira Tozawa does for me is entertaining. Like, I hate Titus worldwide, but when he was there, his off-putting, him and Titus's weird dynamic was so funny to me.
Yeah.
And now that he's like doing this whole Vince McMahon character is hysterical, and it doesn't hurt him that he lost to Mark Andrews. I think it puts more eyes on the UK scene. They could show up in NXT, they could show up in Progress, they could show up in Over the Top, and also we get to see Andrews again on 205 Live, which isn't a bad thing.
I'm so glad that they finally brought him in and they're using him. He was one of my favorites coming out of that UK tournament. Of course, man. Other than like Dunn and Bate.
He reminds me a lot of Matt Sydal.
Yeah.
But actually could connect to WWE's audience. Seidel, especially in recent years, just seems like so like I don't know. He's just a smile to me.
He just seems like he's more interested in Got High. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly. And like he did the Evan Bourne thing, and that was just kind of like okay. It was a bad era for guys his size, I guess, and he didn't come in at the right time or whatever.
But, well, he did have a pretty good tag team title run with Kofi.
Yeah, but it was an era where it just didn't. If Matt Sydal came in today instead
different ball game.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Mark Andrews has the potential to like really go far in WWE, and it's great to see him in WWE because whenever he was in Impact Wrestling, they made him look like Bart Simpson, and it was awful. But I'm not gonna bury Impact Wrestling because now it's changed, so I'm not going to say anything bad about them.
Well, speaking of real quick, how do you feel about Sydal being the Grand Champion?
Oh, well, I think it's a good thing because EC3 is obviously gone. The storyline between the both of them was good, and what eventually may happen to the Grand Championship is a good thing. Seidel has mentioned, he's gotten the judges out of there, so now it's more of it's just a wrestling match for a mid-card title, and he's starting to say that the title isn't worth much to him. So it looks like that the Impact creative team is seeing that their roster is maybe a little bit bare for all of these championships, and they want to focus more on character development and such. At least that's what I'm getting from it. So I think it's a great thing that he has the title right now because I think he's going to retire the title.
I can see that happening. I've heard rumors that they were thinking about doing it, but that was like a couple of months ago at this point. So I can see that happening, though.
So who do you think is going to be?
Cut out. Yep, sorry, cut out again.
Who do you think is going to be at WrestleMania wrestling for this cruiserweight title?
It's a tough one, honestly, because there's a lot of great talent in the tournament right now. And has everybody been announced for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Right now we have Cedric over Metalik, TJP over Bate, Strong over Atami, Kalisto over Dorado, Andrews over Tozawa, Gulak over Nice, and next week the last two matches is Buddy Murphy versus Arya Davari and Jack Gallagher versus Mustafa Ali.
Honestly, I'm probably going to say Cedric's going to win it just because of the way he's been booked for the last couple of months. And like you said, he's probably was on this path anyway. And it seems like right now he's probably the most over guy on the 205 roster. But I think he's going to go against Gulak in the finals, honestly.
I would love for that to happen. I would also love to see Gulak versus Strong at some point.
That would be great. That would be a good semifinal match.
Yeah, like if Cedric gets the final spot on the other side, I want to see Gulak versus Strong to see who goes against Cedric at Mania.
It's definitely interesting. Do you think that's going to be pre-show or main show?
The past few WrestleManias have been like almost an entire day event.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, people talk about pre-show, this show, that show, main show. It's all the same,
Tell that to Austin Aries, who got his match got cut off the TV last year. That's the reason I asked, because you think they'll try to make up for that mistake that they made. Because that might be one of the reasons why Austin Aries left, because he was a little bitter about that.
Aries went on Jericho's podcast and said that that's not why.
Oh, okay.
He was like, he said they creatively didn't have anything for me, and I want to be doing something.
Actually,
that's basically why he left.
I'm gonna put myself over here a little bit. I actually got Austin Aries to like a tweet because I retweeted a picture of him. I said, a good thing nobody had anything to do with anything creative for Austin Aries because it seems like everybody else did.
And doesn't it feel so good when they acknowledge you? It's like,
yeah,
what?
it was like, holy shit.
I remember years ago when I actually knew how to use a Twitter. I was talking about Breaking Bad, or I said something to Gail Kim about TV shows because she wanted TV show recommendations, and I said Breaking Bad, and we like kind of talked back and forth, and I was like losing my mind. I was like, oh my god, I'm interacting with Gail Kim, and then like one time I called into the Taz show, and I was like, oh, I talked to Taz, it's crazy.
I actually had I had Taz retweet me. We actually had a conversation. I was about the New England Patriots, so that had nothing to do with wrestling.
Hopefully you were anti New England Patriots.
Oh, come on. I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Is that even a question?
You never know with people anymore.
You don't. No, I hate New England with every ounce of my being. I hate New England more than most people hate Roman Reigns.
Oh, Roman. Oh, God. So we've discussed the 205 Live topic. Another topic I wanted to get into is it was announced for Supercard of Honor that Kenny Omega versus Cody Rhodes, and a lot of developments have been happening between the Bullet Club members. Who's siding with who? Who's the real leader? It seems like Skrull is in the middle. Hangman has kind of sided with Cody. The Bucks opened the door to Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega on being the elite. And then you have
great show, by the way.
Yes. And then you have the OGs like the Tama Tonga and his brothers and Bad Luck Fale and the Tokyo Pimp, and it's an interesting storyline because you got a guy named the American Nightmare who shows up and gets all this attention and is kind of swindling his way through the biggest act outside of the WWE, while Kenny Omega is putting on 6-star matches and 5-star matches all year, and now it's coming to a head. And I feel like this is what they wanted to do with Adam Cole.
No doubt.
Adam Cole got the call from WWE, and luckily Cody decided to shut all the calls from WWE down and go to the ROH New Japan side. It's a very I want to know what you think is happening, or like what your take is on what's happening and where it's leading, because it's a very delicate situation.
No doubt. And I just want to point something out real quick. I called this months ago on the Phenomenal Podcast. I feel like this is going to lead to kind of like an NWO split, where it's going to be Bullet Club Japan, Bullet Club USA. And obviously Kenny, lead of Japan, Cody, lead of US. Where the split breaks, though, that's where it's confusing. Did you see New Japan posted a little documentary with Kota and Kenny, where they were like training and talking about like all their old stuff?
As the Golden Lovers?
Yes.
No, I didn't see it yet.
Oh yeah, this was posted like a couple of days ago. So they're definitely going to that, and then I'm pretty sure you saw they announced the match, which is going to be the Golden Lovers versus Marty and Cody. But when it was announced, Marty Scurll went online on Twitter and put, "I didn't okay this." So I have a feeling Marty's definitely going to lean more towards the Japan side.
Well, I didn't see that. I did see that the Golden Lovers will be wrestling the Best Friends at the WrestleCon show on Mania weekend.
That's cool.
But yeah, that'll be a good match.
Who would have thought in 2018 that the Best Friends would be one of the hottest tag teams on the planet right now?
Who knew that one of the Dude Busters would seemingly become a huge indie star.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Like, I've been a fan.
Asked any WWE fan who the Dude Busters were, they'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, they're not a good tag team. I can't remember who his tag team partner was.
I don't remember his name, but I remember looking him up, and he's like a school teacher now.
Well, obviously that shows how good his career went.
Yeah, well, at least he's doing something, you know.
Hey, at least he got to that point. I can't hate on him for that.
Right. I think that I don't want to see a split like the NWO.
Okay.
Because I feel like the NWO split was like one of the things that killed WCW. But
you're right.
That it's happening in two different promotions in two different countries, maybe it could work that way.
That's the key, honestly. That's the huge key.
Yeah, because if you keep them separate and then maybe have them fight each other like once a year or something, you know, that's okay. But like, you know, they have the name being the Elite. So with Kota going into the room with them, it really all depends on how the Young Bucks, how they side with things.
Yeah.
If they side with Omega, then there's going to be a split. But if they side with Cody, then Omega is exiled. And he will be with Kota as a tag team partner and by himself as a singles competitor.
Now, do you think that would benefit him?
I think that Kenny Omega as a performer and a talent is so good that either way he will prevail. I think that it definitely would benefit him if that happened, because the Bullet Club were supposed to be heels, and in the beginning, you know, people hated Prince Devitt.
Oh yeah,
Gallows and Anderson. They hated them guys. Then AJ made it cool, kinda, and then Omega and the Bucks really took it to another level to where it was just awesome and cool. And now you have, you know, Japanese girls screaming "Kenny, Kenny" while he's wrestling. So like, if that were to happen, he could totally go face and be very, very good. And it also would maybe help his career in the way he wants it in Japan before he leaves Japan, if he ever does leave Japan. You know, he could get the matches that he wants, like with Kota, against Kota, and put that behind him, and you know, face, you know, do a whole thing against the Bullet Club, and it could be really good. So yeah, if the Bucks did like a double turn and like made it look like they were gonna go with Omega and then just super kick him, and then everyone's just like, yeah, Omega, you're out of here. You were the problem, because we never had problems before with AJ and Fergal.
They did touch on that on being the Elite.
Yeah, and like, so see how it plays out. And then you got this other guy named the American Nightmare. So you could take an entire thing to where he's just manipulating and masterminding the entire Bullet Club to the point where not only is he the leader, but he's just like seemingly like seeing other people rise and being like, no, this is not where this guy might be on the rise too much. I need to stop him, even though he's in my faction. Yeah. You know, because he's the American Nightmare and he's in Japan. You know, I could see that happening. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic over there.
Definitely. Can I give you a little theory I have on Cody, actually?
Absolutely.
Now, hear me out on this, because it might be a little far-fetched, but through watching all of Being the Elite, I've noticed the trend since Cody's joined the show. Cody's been kind of putting everybody against each other. So what what if Cody's main goal is not to become the leader of the Bullet Club, but to end the Bullet Club? But but from the inside.
American Nightmare, dude.
Yep. Because if you think about it, because like on the latest episode of Being the Elite, spoilers if you haven't watched it, he goes to Marty, he's like, man, Villain Club, you should make that a thing. So he's kind of like trying to push Marty out, if you think about it. And then with
or at least making him his own separate thing.
Exactly.
And Hangman Page, you could do this, and all of a sudden everybody's a separate entity, and there's no Bullet Club, and he's just on a throne laughing.
Exactly. Because I mean, if I'm writing the story, that's where I'm going with it. I feel like that would be such a great payoff if they actually that was the end of the Bullet Club. I don't think Bullet Club's ending anytime soon. I'm just going to preface that. But man, what an ending it would be.
Well, it's like with the Shield. The Shield got so hot, and they were heels, and then they were face, and they were so hot, and then they ended it. So then whenever there's ever a mention or an inkling toward it being again, that everyone goes crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe an ending to the Bullet Club this year wouldn't be such a bad idea.
I mean, how old is the Bullet Club at this point anyway? They're looking at like 4 years at this point.
Right. Something like that.
It's incredible, honestly. There's just the longevity. Like, the only teams you really think about with that kind of longevity are like the NWO and DX, and they got super stale towards those points. Like, I'm sorry, I was a big fan of the 2008 DX run, or 2006 DX run, but that was so dumb looking back at it in hindsight.
Right, it's just a nostalgia feel. But speaking of Ring of Honor New Japan Bullet Club and how they can keep it going and not be stale, we have the Women of Honor tournament to crown the first ever champion. And it was recently noted that the last and final competitor would be Tennille Dashwood, formerly Emma of the WWE, former Lance Storm Academy trainee, and the Australian goddess, as I like to call her.
Totally agree.
We got this tournament. We have we have some Stardom competitors, which is great because Stardom, to me, is the leading female wrestling promotion.
No doubt.
We have a lot of ROH Dojo homegrown talent like Bonesaw Brooks and Mandy Leone. We have some names in there that have been around to different promotions like Madison Rayne and Deonna Purrazzo.
I was shocked to hear Madison Rayne is in the tournament, honestly.
Madison Rayne, she's got a name to her. It's gonna put eyes on the product. That's why you have a Madison Rayne there.
No doubt.
In the first round, she's going up against Mandy Leone, and I see Mandy Leone going over, and I will explain why as I go over this bracket. We on the other side, you see Jenny Rose versus Kagetsu, and the Jenny Rose Kagetsu match and the HZK, I hope I'm saying that right, against Mayu Iwatani match will be happening in Japan.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because 3 of those competitors of our Stardom, Kagetsu is like I would say like a Bull Nakano, kind of like heel, just like a bigger and badder woman. She's awesome. She's been around. I think her going over Jenny Rose is definitely going to happen. Tennille is going to go all the way to the finals. She's going to face Kagetsu, but before she gets there, I think she's going to wrestle Brandy Rhodes.
Well, that's where I disagree with you, because I think Brandy Rhodes is going to win the whole damn thing.
Well, I think Tennille versus Brandy Rhodes, whoever wins that is going to go to the final.
No doubt.
And before that, they're going to wrestle Kagetsu. And here's why. I've been saying ever since Tennille got fired that she needs to go to this Women of Honor and join the Bullet Club somehow and be like maybe not the first lady because Gallows' wife was, but like represent the Bullet Club in female wrestling capacity.
Now, wait,
And
not to cut you off, but isn't Brandy Rhodes technically doing that right now?
well, that's what I was about to say.
Okay.
Brandy Rhodes isn't as experienced as Tenille, and Brandy, she's wrestling, but she's more so attached to Cody. I see, like this is good experience for her. I don't know what the future holds, as we were talking about, like with Cody. Like if she's attached to Cody, then she might not be Bullet Club either.
True.
Who knows? I see Mayu Iwatani beating HCK just because Mayu, aside from Io Shirai and Kari Hojo, they put Stardom on the map. Mayu will win. Diana will win. Mayu or Diana will win, but I think the finals will be Mandy Leon versus Tenille or Brandy.
You're going to take Mandy Leon over Kelly Klein?
Mandy. Here's why. Mandy Leon has been on Ring of Honor television doing anything she can for years.
No doubt.
She has been, before this whole Women of Honor thing even happened, and her not winning the title would be a huge disservice to all of the hard work and the time that she has put in for Ring of Honor.
That's understandable.
Now, her against Tenille or Brandy, something happens there where Tenille joins the Bullet Club. Whether she's facing Mandy and Brandy comes out to help her and it goes awry, or Brandy's wrestling and Tenille shows up and tries to help her and it goes awry. What I want to see is Mandy win, but at the end of the day, Brandy and Tenille are saying, we are Bullet Club and we don't care if you put this title on her. We're together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's interesting, honestly, because I mean, it seems like also they could go down the route like, oh, these are the ex WWE girls too. Which, if you do that, I know it sounds crazy, but I want to see more Summer Rae. I miss her a lot. I would love to see her, if not part of the Bullet Club per se, but like in a faction with those two. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if Summer Rae is pursuing wrestling anymore.
I don't think she is, but I miss her. I was a fan of her, honestly. I didn't think she would. A lot of people talk a lot of crap on her wrestling ability. I didn't think she was as bad as a lot of people said.
Yeah, people have a lot of opinions, you know.
Yeah.
I thought she was great whenever she was in NXT.
Oh yeah.
She anchored Sasha Banks and Charlotte, man.
No doubt, she was the star before those two got big. If a lot of people don't remember that.
Yeah, they were the BFFs, and she was the top dog, and unfortunately she got injured and she was placed with Fandango, and Vince didn't see her the way Triple H seen her. So
yeah, obviously.
But yeah, that's what I would like to see from this Women of Honor tournament, and I'm stoked that one more thing before we go into the next thing. This Women of Honor tournament, everyone's like, oh, finally, Ring of Honor is doing something with women. How come it took so long? Well, Ring of Honor has been revolutionizing wrestling for the past 10 years. A lot of the male stars of Impact, of WWE, like CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Cesaro, Cassius Ohno, Seth Rollins, Samoa Joe, Austin Aries, Jimmy Jacobs, all these people came through there.
Can't forget Christopher Daniels. He carried that company at the start.
AJ Styles,
yep.
Even, they had limited visibility on them. And as they kept increasing visibility, they kept increasing why people were watching them. And now they're at a point where they can viably put a lot more emphasis on women's wrestling. They always had women's wrestlers. They always had women's wrestlers on their big shows and such like that in the back in the day. So like, to all the people who say, "Oh, it's about time that Ring of Honor did this," they really, I feel like a lot of the times people need to sit back and really look at the big picture. And it's a timely thing, and you're not running the business. You don't, you can't just up out of the air just get $1 million or $2 million or whatever to do whatever you want. You have to make moves. You have to rely on your strengths, and you have to do what you have to do. And I just wanted to address that before we get into the end of the show here.
No, definitely. I agree with you 100%. I feel like a lot of people have been saying that. And I agree with them to a point. I think it's great that Ring of Honor is doing something. I think it is a long time coming, just because if you look at how the women's wrestling scene on the indies is really in the last couple of years taken off with women like Candice LeRae, Deonna Purrazzo, Mendez, what's her name?
Mercedes,
yes. Mercedes Martinez, like women like that. Even to a point, Shayna Baszler, like in recent time, like it seems like this is something Ring of Honor would have done a couple of years ago. But I'm glad. I think this is the right time to do it. I think if they would have done it a couple of years ago, like earlier, I think a lot of people would have been like, "Oh, they're just trying to be like WWE. They're just trying their coattails with the Women's Revolution." So I'm kind of glad they did wait.
Exactly. Impact had the Knockouts division. You didn't see WWE doing stuff. Then Impact started falling apart at a point, and now it's the Women's Revolution. Now the Women's Revolution is pretty much stabilized. Now Ring of Honor is like, hey, we're going to branch out into this. And, there's a lot of factors at play, but it's a great thing. I'm glad to see it. And that's about all I have to say on that. Tony, with the end of the show, I would like to end each show with a question.
All right.
To my guest. And my question for you is, what in your lifespan was your favorite feud?
Favorite feud? Oh.
What got you so engrossed in the product, the entertainment side of it? Just lifted the veil for you, or maybe put the veil on, and you just, it didn't matter if it was predetermined or choreographed. You had to see what happened between these two performers, these two athletes.
Well, I can I have two answers, because it's a two-part answer.
You could say whatever you want.
All right. Well, because as a kid, there's one feud that just sticks out in my mind. Like the instant you said it, this feud instantly popped. I thought you were gonna go with match, and the match that I was gonna choose is part of this feud, and that is the John Cena versus Edge rivalry in 2005, 2006 for the WWE title on Raw.
Great choice.
That was the feud of my childhood, from the match at SummerSlam to Edge going to Cena's house and kicking Cena's dad's ass, to Cena throwing Edge to the Long Island Sound, to that phenomenal, like, it literally, I can't think of a greater match in my mind than that John Cena versus Edge ladder match at Unforgiven in Edge's hometown. Really, if you think about it in the timeline of John Cena, that's the match where fans really started to boo against Cena. Like I mean, you could kind of argue the ECW one, but that was a totally different situation. The one night stand against RVD, it's a different situation,
right?
But just the hatred that Cena felt that night, and they put on a great performance. 5 stars in my opinion. But that was the match in my childhood, and around like high school, how most wrestling fans in high school they realize that girls aren't into wrestling, and they kind of shy away from it a little bit. Well, around 18, I I was kind of like in a weird spot with wrestling because WWE just wasn't really doing it for me anymore. And then really, I started to go on to the internet and try to find some stuff, and I kept hearing about this guy named Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen. I'm sorry, and I was like, all right, I got to find this Kevin Steen guy, and I stumbled upon this rivalry that totally changed my outlook on professional wrestling. That you want to talk about taking the veil off. I had no idea what independent wrestling was until I found Kevin Steen versus El Generico. And holy shit. You want to talk about storytelling. I don't think that there's a better book feud in history, honestly. From the tag team run of Steen and Generico winning the titles to them splitting up after losing to the Young Bucks at Wrestle Kingdom, or not Wrestle Kingdom, Final Battle, to them feuding for a year with Carino getting involved and Colt Cabana, then Jimmy Jacobs gets involved. And for them to have the last man, the hardcore match to loser leaves and have Kevin Steen leave and to just show up at a random event and say F Ring of Honor and Jim Cornette just hating the real hatred. This wasn't like, you could tell it wasn't acted. This was true hatred between these two men. To the match with Steve Carino at the next Wrestle Kingdom just to get Kevin Steen back, to Kevin Steen winning the world title, the Ring of Honor World Championship, which at that time as a wrestling fan was crazy to think about, to the ladder match. It's crazy that both my feuds culminated in a ladder match, which might be my favorite match type of all time, if I'm being totally honest. That might be biased. But the match between him and Generico for the Ring of Honor World title was probably one of the most devastating ladder matches, maybe except for like Michaels versus Jericho. They just took it to the limit every time they go out of the ring with each other. And even to this day, as Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn still take it to the limit with each other every time they get in that ring. So those are probably the two feuds I'd say.
WG, where they also had an amazing ladder match.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's hard. I didn't see much of the PWG stuff because it's harder to find that stuff, but I have seen some of their work there, and it's also great.
Right, and it's the only feud outside of WWE that has taken place, been acknowledged from its past, and taken place inside of WWE, which is crazy.
Like Steen's first night, they ignited that rivalry again.
It's like crazy, dude.
They didn't even wait. That's the best part,
right?
So I gotta go. Like, if you know me and you listen to the podcast and you've met me, you know Kevin Steen's my guy. I still call him Kevin Steen even though he's Kevin Owens because he's just like he's a great person, great wrestler. I think he's the best wrestler on the planet. I know AJ's great. I know Omega's great, but KO is my man.
It's all down to opinion. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
You can make a case for many guys who are the best on the planet, and you know, if you said Kevin Steen, I wouldn't argue against you because athletically he's great, psychology he's great, on the mic he's great, character development he's great. You know, I couldn't argue you. That's your opinion, and I would definitely put him up there as well.
Now I know this is my question, but what's your feud?
My feud is kind of, you gave two answers. I'm going to give two answers because it's when I was young, when I was a boy, I loved the Ultimate Warrior, but then he left. He was like my first favorite wrestler. Soon thereafter, my favorite wrestler became Bret Hart. And I always had liked Bret Hart, but that's when I really started, and it was odd because I was still young, but I started really appreciating the more technical aspect of wrestling and the way a match worked and how things looked in the ring. And when he and Shawn got into it, and I saw that Iron Man match. It was just like I always loved wrestling, but like my life changed. And I was always a Brett guy, so I was always against Shawn. But Shawn came back, and he was my feelings changed on him. But like when I said, it takes you out of that. It takes you out of being a fan of everyone, and you have to choose a side, and you have such a feeling in you of passion that this feud gives you. Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels was a feud that just drove me crazy.
Oh
You
no,
know,
yeah, I get that 100%.
I mean, like and then whenever Bret left, you know, it all just kind of ended. I didn't really care what Shawn was doing, and I didn't really care what Bret was doing because WCW wasn't using him well, and I wasn't that big of a fan of Shawn Michaels at that point in my life. Uh, but another feud that you mentioned that is a huge uh, love of mine is the Jericho 2008 rivalry with Shawn Michaels, and
That
I love
one's, not to cut you off, but that's my number 3 for sure.
yeah, that's up there just because of how good they worked together, how the story was. They had rivalries before, but this one felt so much more real because he hit his wife, and like Jericho was at that point where he was wearing the suits and he was talking so maliciously but calm, and it just worked really, really well. But I think in the most recent years, the whole CM Punk versus John Cena
Yeah,
uh, uh, was something that made me feel like a kid again.
and that was during such a dark period for wrestling. Like if you think those like
Oh,
the early 10s, like '09 to like 2013 was like a real dark period.
dude, I went back from the week before the pipe bomb and watched like maybe 3 weeks of Raw or 4 weeks, like through Night of Champions and all that. And I'll tell you, man, without Cena and Triple H and Vince McMahon and CM Punk, that show was poop sandwich.
Oh, it was bad. It was like that's why the Steen or Steen Generico rivalry is so big with me, because it was that period of time where it was like, what the hell am I watching on WWE television?
Uh, but yeah, I'd have to say those three rivalries are 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 my favorite, and yeah.
I definitely appreciate all three. But I just want to add to that, to the Michaels. Not only was the matches with Michaels and Jericho in '08 great, I love the WrestleMania 19 match, that storyline. I love that rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it too because at that point I appreciated Shawn Michaels as the performer he was, and such. So like my viewpoint on him changed, and I love Chris Jericho. He's my favorite wrestler of all time. Um, but I feel like, to me, the one in '08 held more weight for me because of who Jericho was at that point.
Oh yeah.
I liked the short hair, so much of a change of who he was. No more glitz and glam. I'm
I not to cut you off, but I love Jericho so much as a kid. I actually turned on him one point because he cut his hair and got rid of the trunks or the tights, and he went to trunks. That bothered the hell out of me.
yeah. Well, like you said, you went to Ring of Honor during those times, and there was a time for me where I didn't watch wrestling anymore, like you were saying, like in high school and such. But I started reminiscing with friends, and we went out and bought WrestleMania 1 through 10 and the Bret Hart DVD and all this stuff. And then 2 weeks later, we were ordering pay-per-views, and like, oh, Jeff Hardy's a singles wrestler now, and this is crazy.
I can imagine if you went away for a couple of years in like the mid 2000s, you came back like, wait a minute, Jeff Hardy's a singles wrestler, DX is back, and who the fuck is Gene Snitsky?
Dude, I came back around like 07 or 08, and the only thing that was good, the only two things that were good were CM Punk versus Jeff Hardy and like Undertaker versus Edge. Everything else was garbage.
I want to put that's a top 5 rivalry for me too, because that Hell in a Cell match.
Yes,
oh.
Dude. Let me tell you a story real quick. I was watching the Hell in a Cell at a friend's house with some people. The match was over. I went outside. We're all BSing, and my friend's dad comes out and he goes, "JP, you'll never believe what happened." And I didn't even look at him, and I said, Undertaker chokeslammed him off the ladder through the canvas. Then he did a pose, and fire came out. And he was like, "How did you know that?" And I said, "Man, I've been watching wrestling since I was a toddler, and I love it." He was like, "That's insane." He was like, "Are you a wizard?" And I was like, "No, I'm not a wizard."
No, hearing that story, that doesn't surprise me that we're sitting here doing this now. You were destined for this.
I love wrestling, and I hope that everyone who has tuned in or will tune in to this debut episode of the Omegacast with me, JP Whitman, and my first interview, my friend Tony Mussolino of the Phenomenal Podcast, enjoyed themselves and will come back again.
Oh, I loved it. It was, like I said, I'm so happy to have you doing this on the channel. Thank you for believing in the channel enough to want to do this, and cheers to a very bright future, not only for the Omegacast, but for Goonland in general.
Oh, yes. Keep your eyes on Goonland Productions. Check out the Phenomenal Podcast with Tony and my brother-in-arms, Drake, Duncan, and also we're going to be doing big things this year, and this is, like I said on my Facebook and Instagram, this is the beginning. So with that, I thank you, Tony, for being my first interview. We already plugged the Drake Bergman at the beginning of the show, and thank you to everyone who took the time out of their day or evening, wherever you are in the world, to listen to the Omegacast.